Hi guys, I don't know if Nigel Farage's response to questions he doesn't like is performative or natural, because he was asked a question here about deporting asylum seekers currently sitting in hotels, and what he had to say doesn't make a lot of sense. Have a listen to this.
You say migrants in hotels should be deported. Where should they be deported to if their country isn't safe or if another country won't accept them?
I'm sorry, I've had enough of this. If you come from Afghanistan, you go back to Afghanistan. End of. This idea we can't send people to certain countries, all the false claims that people make about their own personal lives. I'm sorry, we're done. We're done. We've had enough.
Okay, so he wants to send people to Afghanistan. Now just think about it for a moment. Why would there be people in Britain from Afghanistan? Because the Taliban are in charge now. People who have fled the Taliban are in Britain because it's unsafe for them to be in Afghanistan. Now, Farage has said on a number of occasions that he doesn't have a problem with legitimate asylum seekers. Well then, what would you call people who have fled the Taliban? Would they be legitimate asylum seekers? Because this is what he's saying. He doesn't believe that they're legitimate. He wants to do a deal with the Taliban to send people, in many cases women, back to Afghanistan so that they can be persecuted by the Taliban. Because that's exactly what would happen. They are in Britain because they don't want to be in Afghanistan because it's not safe for them. This doesn't make any sense. Farage has said that he supports legitimate claims of asylum, but he wants to send legitimate asylum seekers into danger. Now, this is nonsensical on so many levels. First of all, if Farage became Prime Minister, and it's almost as if the media is talking as if he is Prime Minister or he will be the next Prime Minister. The election isn't for a number of years, but we're talking as if Nigel Farage is going to be the next Prime Minister. But you'd need to have a deal with the Taliban. Now, how could you do a deal with a regime like the Taliban? And then you would have to send people back to Afghanistan, even though we know that it's unsafe. So the Supreme Court would shoot this down straight away. You can't send people to an unsafe country. The Taliban would have to demonstrate that they have reformed and that it's safe for people to go there. It's not safe. In the same way as Rwanda was not safe. The Tories were trying to legislate to make Rwanda safe. No, the only way Rwanda would become safe is if the government made its own reforms, the government in Rwanda. So for Farage to succeed in sending people to Afghanistan, two things would have to happen. First of all, the Taliban would have to reform in some way, reform with a lowercase r, of course, a small r. And the Supreme Court in Britain would have to deem Afghanistan a safe country for people to be sent there. Now, Farage can't do anything about the Taliban. He can try and ignore the Supreme Court. I don't know if he'll get away with that. But he can try and ignore the Supreme Court, but he can't ignore the reality of the situation. Afghanistan is currently unsafe. People are in Britain because they're fleeing the Taliban. So the idea that he can just send people back there makes no sense whatsoever. Now, it doesn't mean that he can't deport people. He could deport them to countries other than Afghanistan. And this is what happens. So Afghans who have no right to be in Britain can be deported to other countries. But those countries have to be willing to take those people in. And so that means that Farage, as Prime Minister, would have to do deals with other countries. Is he willing to do that? Will he be able to do that? And once again, he would have to follow the rules. The Supreme Court would have to deem those countries safe. So I think what he's trying to do here is he's trying to act tough because he's afraid that there are these movements to the far right of Reform UK, who are the Rupert Lowells and the Ben Habibs who are emerging now. They want a tougher line on immigration. They want to deport people irrespective of whether they have a right to stay in the country. So Farage is worried about that section of society. But he also wants to expand beyond his base. He understands that if he really wants power, he needs to soften his approach to immigration. But it's ridiculous to say, yes, we're going to send people to Afghanistan, because obviously he can't. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.